Good morning and welcome to the February monthly DAC Webcast. I'm Jennifer Stafford, the Director in the Division of Assessment and Accountability Support. And we welcome you on this snowy day here in Central Kentucky. Much of the state is covered in a layer of snow and ice. So hopefully where you are watching, that you are safe, you're warm, and are ready for the presentation today and the information. We have a full agenda for us today. We have many of our consultants in the Division of Assessment and Accountability Support here to provide the most updated information. If we look at the agenda, it's quite full, and we're going to provide the most up-to-date information as we have as of today. Generally, we would be in the middle of our February DAC trainings, and we would be with you in person and presenting to you live the information. We do miss everyone, and we miss the trips and seeing our district assessment coordinators and our building assessment coordinators. Hopefully next year we'll be back to more in-person interaction, and we can hopefully be back and see you in person again. But today, virtually, we are bringing you ACT highlights. Shara Savage has some exciting flexibilities that ACT is offering and that we are taking advantage of. So Shara is going to start us out this morning with ACT test schedules, options, and some consideration. Chris Williams is here with us to present some updates on the assessment and alternate assessment. We have some good news about files and updating of the system with access testing. Kevin O'Hare will follow Chris with the Kentucky portal. We have some really exciting resources to provide you in that Kentucky portal, and we've worked for several months with our partners at Pearson to develop these. So we're very excited to announce the release of the Kentucky portal, as well as the accommodated practice test and some science released items that are within that Kentucky portal. Jenny Larkins will provide updates on the quality of school climate and safety survey, as well as additional items that are going to be added this year due to the pandemic. Those items will be about opportunity to learn, and she will provide us updates on and links to where those items can be found. I'll finish this out with the assessment and accountability updates and provide you the most up-to-date information about the accountability regulation, Spring 21 assessment, as well as the future assessment work. And as always, if you have questions, Pam Powers is monitoring our DAC info email account. So if you have questions along the way, we'll pause every so often and answer your questions. If you have those, please email dacinfo@education.ky.gov, and we'll answer those as we move along through the presentation. So at this time, I'm going to turn to Shara for ACT test schedule options and considerations.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. We're excited to bring you some more flexibility from ACT, so we'll get right into it. First off, we want to share with you some testing plan examples that can provide you with lots of flexibility this spring. So as we've said in the past, it is our expectation at OAA that schools test during the initial test window if at all possible. However, the health and safety of our staff and students are of the utmost importance. So here are just a few examples. So if, say you are, in example B, you are still virtual, but say the building is closed during the initial test window for snow or ice, a combination of paper and online testing, utilizing small groups during test window 2 for initial testing could be used, and then a combination of paper and online testing, utilizing those small groups during test window 3. And then, as you can see in example C, say the district is on a hybrid model. A school could could bring in Schedule A students to test paper pencil on March the 9th with online testing during test window 1 for makeups for the Group A students. Then bring in the Schedule B students to test paper pencil on March 23rd using the online testing window 2 for makeup testing for the Group B students. And then in example E, for example, if you're completely, you're going to be completely virtual until April, a school could use paper pencil on the initial test day of April the 13th in that window 3, and utilize online testing for makeups during test window 3. But please contact me if it's necessary to test using examples D or E so that we can work through the logistics of those examples. And it's really important to note that all online testing refers to in-person training, in-person testing with trained staff. And at this time, KDE and the Administration Code Regulation does not permit remote proctoring for any state assessment. And so in those examples that I just shared with you, it is important for you to know that it is okay to use online and paper combination testing. And there is a multitude of ways that combination can be done. If you get most of your students tested with paper pencil on March 9th or 23rd, and then you want to use the online for makeups, that's perfectly fine. You can test one student online or a whole group. It's really unlimited on what you can do. It provides lots of flexibility. But just remember, whether you're testing paper or online, it must be the first activity of the day. And then here is the flexibility that we were referring to for spring 2021 ACT State Administration. ACT is offering staggered start times, known as the late start policy. This option will be available for paper testing, online testing, and accommodations testing. Districts may offer multiple test sessions within a test day, so long as the rules about the late start time, which are outlined in the ACT's administration manual, are followed. The staggered sessions should be structured to avoid overlapping breaks, and the last session must start by 10:30 a.m. In addition, if a staggered start time is used, testing staff must ensure that examinees from different rooms do not have the ability to interact with each other during breaks. If any school utilizes staggered start times or this late start policy, an irregularity report must be completed. Okay, now what does that look like, you may ask? So here is some examples of if you have 4 groups that you want to split up, group A, B, C, and D, and you're welcome to use those. So I just want to remind you again, though, that this policy is limited to multiple overlapping sessions only. For example, group A could not start and finish prior to group D starting. So most importantly, please ensure that these student groups do not have the opportunity to mingle or pass in the hallway during any staggered testing schedule. And also, these are just some examples of staggered start times that could be utilized with the late start policy. However, if you have a smaller school and you only have 2 groups, So for example, you could utilize the group B that I have exampled there for you, and group D for a testing schedule. But just know that these times that I have listed here, they could vary based on the reading of this script or the extended time for accommodation students. But again, just to remind you, an irregularity report must be completed if this type of policy is used or these times are used. The My ACT sessions cannot be completed on the day of testing. Therefore, non-test sessions will have to be scheduled prior to testing, whether you're using late start or regular starting times. So speaking of My ACT, as a reminder for testing staff, students will need to complete the My ACT account. The student will complete non-test activities, update their demographics, receive ACT notifications, access information to prep for the ACT exam, and most importantly, access those test scores. Students have the opportunity to complete the pre-test activities at home with a parent or guardian prior to test day. Schools may also hold pre-test sessions. For students completely in person or on a hybrid model, hosting a pre-test session may be preferable. For students completely virtual, having students complete the pre-test activities at home may be preferable. Either way, it is the responsibility of the test coordinator to guarantee all students have completed this activity. Failure to complete this activity can result in the student's inability to send scores to colleges and universities and receive their scores. ACT is working to develop a tool to assist testing staff with the ability to view who has completed this task. And so, as a reminder also, depending on the materials receipt window during the select test dates in PAN, materials for schools may have already arrived this week. When your materials do arrive, the individual non-test instruction for each examinee associated with your school in PAN will be included. But it's important to note that students cannot yet complete the non-test activity in My ACT. ACT will be communicating with testing staff when examinees can complete the non-test activity. Upon receiving materials, please securely store the non-test instructions for students until ACT notifies schools that a non-test activity can be completed. And then on the slide here and in your PowerPoint, there is some links and resources for you, but the latest resource that's been submitted to us is the How to Use Your Student Code for State Testing video. And so that is all the updates I have at this time. Pam, oh, wait a minute, no, I do have one more, sorry. Here are a list of our office hours, and in your PowerPoint, it doesn't include links to each of those meetings. So we look forward to DACs and BACs and TCs to join us and to provide their questions, and we will get those questions answered during the meeting time. So thank you, and that's all the updates I have. Pam, do we have any questions for this section?
Pam, you may be on mute.
I am on mute. Thank you. If we have all of our students in person, can we stagger the days for social distancing?
Yes, you can. Just be sure that your group A does not start and finish before say your group D or whatever group that you may be using, but one group cannot start and finish before another one starts. So that's important. And don't forget your irregularity report.
Okay, we've had a couple more questions come in.
Okay.
For parents that will not send their students to school to take the ACT, will spring 2021 be their only chance to take the state ACT? Or do we do our best to test every junior that will attend?
At this time, this is the only windows that we have available for the spring 2021. But of course, I mean, that could possibly change, with depending on how the COVID pandemic continues to unfold. Hopefully that we are, retracting from that. But yes, it is important that every student takes the ACT. So do your best and bring those students in, following all the guidelines.
Okay. And we've had another question.
Okay.
Are schools limited to 2 days of paper pencil administration of the ACT? For example, if a school utilizes Windows 1 and 2 for paper pencil administration and still has makeups after that, is online during Windows 1 and 2 the only option?
No, it is not. So if say that you just your school can't do online testing, you could utilize all 3 windows. You could test paper pencil March 9th. So you could bring in a group of one group of students on, say, Schedule A students on March the 9th. And then on March the 23rd, you could bring in your Schedule B students. And then on April the 13th, you could bring in a mixture of A and B students for makeup testing. But again, if you choose any part of window 3, be sure to contact me because there's some logistics that we may need to talk through.
Okay. And we've had another question come in.
Okay.
How many students can we test in a room?
Well, there is some, of course, ACT has their set numbers. It is in the manual. I can't remember right off the top of my head. And then we will need to follow the guidelines for a healthy at school. And then if you're doing targeted, they have a different number. So if you're unsure, email me and we'll look at your scenario and what will apply to you. So just send me an email and we can work through that scenario based on your demographics in your if you're virtual, if you're hybrid, all that plays into it. So just send me an email.
Okay, and that wraps up the questions so far.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. And I will hand it off to Chris Williams now for access testing update.
Thank you, Shara. Before we get started, I just want to kind of give you a little bit of background about where we are with access at this point. We started back in October and did the ordering window for access. Also, when that closed, we also sent, OAA sent a file to DRC to be able to pre-populate your test sessions when those opened up in December in WIDA AMS based off of the original schedule. And then we had a change to our schedule. So you got materials and WIDA AMS opened in December. And then the test window was moved back to March from January. So people ask us, well, could we upload a new file? Could you all upload a new file into WIDA AMS closer to the window. And so let's begin on what we're going to update you on today. So we are going to do another preload of your students. And what we want you to do is, before we do that preload, we want to make sure that every district has all of their ELs identified in Infinite Campus, because that's where we always pull from our, for any of our rosters or any, of our systems, for testing, we always pull from Infinite Campus. So what we want you to do is make sure that by February 19th, that you have all your students in Infinite Campus as identified, as much as possible for your English learners. And then what we will do is OAA will pull another file after that date and send that to DRC to upload. And we will also be sending out some more information about this in the Monday DAC email as well. But let's go to the next slide and let's talk about what happens when we go to put this up, upload, and what you will see, after that 19th date. So what will happen is that, you already had students, if they were still in your district, even, back in December and then still there in the district, then those students will remain there and will already be, they're already pre-populated for you in test sessions. Now, we will also be adding some new students, because this is the most mobile population of students. They move from one place to the next, and they also move back. So let's talk about that, because what we're going to do is with your added students, we're going to add, could possibly add some new students to your district with this new upload, because they may have moved into your district. So we want you to have the most up-to-date file for you. So it'll be less work for you on that end to be adding students. So when we upload and there's new students, what's going to happen is that we will, those students will be pre-populated just like the ones back in December were. And then what happens is that we do have students who have moved from one district to another. And so what happens is, if you've got with the preload of this new file, the previous school will still have the students in their, test session. So what you want to do is remove them from a test session, because remember, you can't ever delete any students from WIDA AMS. And and I apologize because I forgot to tell you, maybe some of you are new, and WIDA AMS is the WIDA Assessment Management System that houses the test sessions, and where you can print out tickets and order additional materials and things like that for access and alternate access. Now, with this, it's going to be for, of course, in WIDA AMS, when we preload that, that's going to be for your students, who are going to be testing online. And so the previous school would just remove them from a test session if they're there. And then the new district, you will see them in your district, and they'll be pre-populated for you into test sessions. Now, what happens if, if a student moves from school to school in your district with this upload? What you want to do is the ones in your district who have district level access to WIDA AMS, you would contact your DAC or designee, and they would be able to move those students for you within the district. Now, let's talk about what to do for your will there be pre-ID labels? Because remember, you received pre-ID labels back in December with your materials. Now, with this new upload, we will not be able to do any additional pre-ID labels. So you would have to, use those district and school codes, and then have to bubble in, the test booklets for any student who has, moved in, and especially are going to be testing online for grades 1 through 3, because, for grades 1 through 3, they test every domain online except for writing. And so you have to order a writing booklet for grades 1 through 3 students only. And so, if they're a new student to you, you don't have a pre-ID label, you would have to apply that district and school label. And if you need more of those labels, you can order those labels through WIDA AMS. If you need additional materials, you can also do that through WIDA AMS under the additional materials. And let's talk about, besides the pre-ID labels, there's also test tickets. And some of you know that it's getting close to access. An alternate access window opens March 1st, goes through April 23rd. And so some of you may have already started printing out your pre-ID labels. So with this upload, you may want to check with what you've already done already. And if you have students who have moved, do not destroy those the labels yet, because you never know, or the test tickets, you never know when they'll come back. And if a student has moved, that's what you're going to do. Now, if you've got new students, you want to look and print out test tickets, for this new upload to see for your new students, because you'll have to print those. And if your district has not printed those yet, because remember, you still have plenty of time before March 1st, because we're just, around mid-February. So you still have time to print those. So don't feel nervous if you haven't printed those, because that's a good thing. Another thing is if you haven't printed those, you want to wait until after February 22nd, because then that way you'll see all your students in WIDA AMS, and you'll be able to see, what you need to print for those students. So just remember that there will not be any more pre-ID labels, shipped to you with this second upload into WIDA AMS. But, you can still print out tickets for any student who is new to your district with this upload, and be able to print those out in WIDA AMS. Now, this concludes this presentation, and I do want to thank you all for all your support for our English learners. And Pam, do you have any questions about access with this upload?
Yes, we've had several questions come in.
Okay.
Let's start with this one. Will there be a non-participation for students who choose the virtual option for school? And when will SDRR be open for this assessment?
Okay. Let's talk about the first one. There are non-participations. Our non-participations for access are the same as they were last year. We do have, except for one, which is an extraordinary circumstance, that will no longer be available for any of our assessments. And so you will have a medical non-participation. You will also have, if they're, if they're not an EL, or if they've withdrawn during the test window, and there will be several others. And also you'll be able to remove any non-participation if you, by accident, you put that in there by mistake into SDRR. And then also another non-participation for access is if you've got a student who is expelled, or throughout the window. That is one of those non-participations. So those are the non-participations we have for those, for access and alternate access at this point. The rosters for these will open up March 1st, and they will go to April 13th. And the reason why we're not going to keep it open the whole entire time for our rosters like we normally do is because, our window goes from March 1st through April 23rd. But we also have to get ready for spring rosters, and so we would have to close down our roster phase to be able to pre-populate those students for you into SDRR in the spring when that opens in April, toward late April. So just want to reiterate that particular piece. Plus, we will have more information for you too, and be able to clean up your students when it comes to data review in the fall. So just stay tuned for that. Pam, are there any additional questions?
Yes, we've had several questions come in. Several people are asking the same thing, and they're asking it not only just about access, but ACT and all the testing as well. But we'll concentrate on access at this point. Since access testing must be administered in person, if we attempt to bring in online students for testing but are unsuccessful, how will that non-participation be handled? And what if a family refuses to bring in a student to be tested?
Okay. Well, what we want you to do is do the best you possibly can to be able to test all of your students, whether they're in person with you, whether you're on a hybrid schedule, or if they're virtual and you have to bring in students, you want to do the best you can. And if like I said, if there's if it doesn't fit into the non-participations that we have during the access rosters, and also when it opens up in the spring, then you will be able to do that. Also, we will be having some more details for you for students who may have not tested because of the refusal for bringing them in. But we want you to do the best you can. We're trying to be flexible with you with the windows, and also with the window, we also want to let you know that too, even though, it is March 1st through April 23rd, we do have flexibility if needed to be able to extend that window. And so we will be working with you and your districts, on this. And like I said, I do appreciate all the questions. Some of them, we may not be able to answer at this particular time, but I'm trying to do the best I can to answer your questions and give you some more information, because like I said, data review is going to be an important piece too. And then with our English learners, it is something that is federally required for our English learners. And not only with that particular piece is that we do have the Office of Civil Rights too, that's part of this process too. And so, we want to do the best in Kentucky, to do our best to, to be able to test our students, during this time, because, that information is going to be valuable. And the more information we have on the students, we can also see where they are at this point and see what has happened, throughout the year. And, it gives you information to where they are and where you need to go with that student in the future. So just as I said, just do the best you can to test all your students. And, you can always email us, any questions, any additional questions you have. So Jennifer, is there anything you would like to add to that particular piece before we move on to additional questions?
Chris, you did a really good job with that. Just let me add just a couple of additional points that, as Chris mentioned, to make a good faith effort to test your virtual students. So what we're doing is we're providing guidance, and we're developing guidance that will be released Monday along with our February DAC trainings. And we're going to get to that during the latter section of the presentation this morning. But with that guidance that we are presenting, the guidance is going to be for districts and schools to make a reasonable, dedicated effort to test all students. We're going to expect that those students that are in person, whether they're in person full-time or whether they're in person hybrid or part-time, to be tested. And those virtual students, as Chris mentioned, it will be beneficial to have the information for those, especially with our English learners, because testing our English learners allows them to demonstrate that they can exit the program and or that they need to continue the program. So it's going to be important to have that information both for the school district, but also the parents and the students. So that reasonable, dedicated effort to test all students, whether they're in person or hybrid. Now, with that, we do understand that the fact that there will be some students and their parents that refuse to come in, that there are real fears of catching the virus, and that they will not come in, and we understand that. With the trainings that we are providing on Monday, the February DAC trainings, specifically the SDRR section will address how to remove those students who are completely virtual, have been virtual during the whole entire test window, and how to remove those student names from that testing roster. So Pam and Chris have worked on that presentation, and that SDRR section will be very beneficial in guiding and answering the questions that are being posed at this point. So I think that when we're able to release those trainings, that that's going to answer a lot of these questions around how to remove those students who are completely virtual from testing. So as Chris said, again, more information, and we're really looking forward to those February DAC trainings and releasing those. And you know those are scheduled for release on Monday, the 15th. And again, I'll present more information later in this broadcast.
Thank you, Jennifer. Pam, do you have any additional questions?
Yes, we have some more. Several people are asking the same question. They've already gone through the added students who have entered the district, and some of them have already printed test tickets. With the new update, will I have to print the test tickets again and check rosters, and will this create duplicates?
It should not do any duplicates for you. If you've already added it, what DRC will look at is to see what you have in there. So that way you will not have, excuse me, any duplicate students, because that's what we're trying to avoid with this, upload. So we're going to do the best we can, sending this information, from Infinite Campus to DRC. And then once DRC gets it, they will be looking at what the students that were already in there, from the previous, see if they're still there, and then also looking to see what this new file is for any new students that they may need to add to yours, or also if any students move to another district during this time. So just be looking for that particular time, and you should, if your students remain the same, you should not have to, reprint any new tickets. You only need to print out tickets if you've got any new students who have been added to that. Also, if, your district, when you get in and look at it, you can look at what you previously had in there, and also, be able to see, what is being added, or, has been if any student has been, moved to another district as well. You'll be able to see that with this new file, and then DRC will do everything they at the best to be able to make sure that this is less work on you. And so, we just wanted to make it another effort for you, because we've never done this before. With this assessment. So, and because of our window being, moved to March, we just wanted to try to help alleviate some of the, work for you at this time. So if you have any questions, just, always feel free to ask me. You can email me or call me, and, I'll get back to you. And also, I'll have a list of, what we're, the file that we're sending, and how that'll, what districts that will affect, and, and how many students that will be. So, if you have any questions about that, you can always, email me with that, and I can talk you through that after, it is released on the 22nd.
And there's a follow-up question for you on that. We have some EL students that have withdrawn from our district. Should we go ahead and remove them from the WIDA test sessions, or just wait until after the new upload? Or will the new upload take care of it?
Well, it doesn't remove any students from any test sessions. So you would have to go in if you've got any students who are, who are already in a test session, and they've already gone. You have to be able to go in and move them out of a test session, and so they should show not started. And if they're not started, and you want to also let the test administrator know not to test those students, because sometimes people look at their who are in their test sessions, and somebody may have forgotten to remove them and try to test them. So, just be very careful, with that, communicate with your proctors, when you've got any students who have withdrawn from your district, or if they've, shifted to, to another school in your district too. So that, just always communicate with them, so that way they know exactly who is to be tested. And they're just going to assume that if I'm in, the proctor is, if they're in that test session, that they're to be tested. So we want it. That's why I want to say is, look at this upload, make sure that if, they may have moved to another district, they've withdrawn and maybe moved to another district in Kentucky, that you want to remove them from any test session. And also, if they've moved out of state, you want to also remove them from a test session. Now, you can't delete them from WIDA AMS. You can never delete them, but you can remove them. And once WIDA AMS closes and testing is complete, then DRC will remove those students for you. And so they will not, they will not show up in, for your data validation, because they won't be a student that, was tested. So.
Okay, Chris, and when will the SDRR for Access training be available?
Access trainings are on the website, I believe, already. Now, the roster, if you're talking about the Access rosters, that will be released soon. I'm working on those, on that particular one for Access rosters. So that should be the only ones that, and if we need to update some of those, I would let you know. So, and be able to send that information in the next Monday, in a Monday DAC email when they're ready to release.
Okay, and we have another question on that preload. Will they need to re-enter accommodations if they've already entered?
You will not have to you should not have to do anything if the student stayed the same. If you've got new students, of course, you're going to have to, now the only way they would have accommodations is if they have an IEP or 504. if they have a PSP, you do not get any accommodations on access. It's only for students who have an IEP or 504. And if you've got any new students to your district who have an IEP or 504, you would need to add those. Otherwise, everything else should remain the same for those students who are still in your district, with this new upload.
And we have a little confusion over the rosters. If the roster closes on April 13th, will we need to test new EL students who move into the district during the testing window if they arrive between April 14th and April 23rd, if they've not been tested elsewhere?
Yes. Even though the rosters may have to close to be able, to pre-populate, because, during this time when rosters are open from March 1st through April 13th, that's only for, you're not going to see any students at that time in that rosters, because you're only going to do non-participations at this time. Now, when it comes to the spring rosters, you'll see all of your students pre-populated for you, for ELs. And if you did any non-participations from, during that window, for access, then those will show up too as well. And if you've got to do any, after, the rosters close, for the first one, any non-participations, you could do that in the spring, because that gives you another opportunity to be able to add those non-participations as well. And also, you always want to test your students, throughout the window, even, up until you can still, even up to the last date, April, 23rd, to test students. You may not, and like I said, the rosters are only for non-participations, not, it's not, it won't have all of your students who are going to be testing. So, Pam, I hope that clarified.
I think so. And that concludes all the questions we have so far.
Okay, I just want to thank you all for all your support. I know I've been out for a extremely long time, and for now, but I want to thank you all again for all of your prayers, all of your sweet comments, and like I said, I love what I do with our EL world, and like I said, I couldn't do it without you. And I do appreciate you all being patient with me during this time, because this is my first week back, and also doing presentation. So just hang in there with me this week, and I'm getting better, and glad to be back. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Kevin O'Hare, who is going to have some information for you on K-Prep. Kevin?
All right, well, thanks, Chris, and we're glad to have you back. So we appreciate the information this morning on the upcoming access testing, and I know that it'll serve very beneficial as we get closer to that upcoming window. I want to thank everybody for viewing today, and I'll be honest, I'm very excited to share some news today regarding the release of the Kentucky portal. This is an online resource specific to the K-Prep assessment that's coming this spring. And I'll be honest with you, when I first heard the word portal, the first thing I thought of was aliens and spaceships, but it's nothing like this. I've got to admit, our friends at Pearson, they've really hit a home run when they developed this new resource. It serves as a one-stop shop and allows access to just a variety of different things, such as your important dates and deadlines that are going to be coming for the assessment window, or for getting things completed in PAN. There's also information there specific to technology that your technology coordinators can use to start preparing for the spring assessments now, or in the next few days. It's also going to provide you with tutorials for TestNav as well as practice tests that include both with and without accommodations that we will go into more detail about in just a couple minutes. These practice tests are also equipped with keys and rubrics specific to their test and they can all be found under the test preparation tab. So when you get a chance, not right now, but in just a little bit, go check that out if you haven't already. If you would like to see released items for science at grades 4, 7, and 11, visit the released items tab. The resources tab will house the TAMs and test scripts once they are ready to post. And the Kentucky portal also gives you direct access to Pearson Access Next or PAN, as well as assistance through the support tab, which will house important contact information. And so staying with the, Helen, if you don't care to move to slide 15. Staying with the topic of the Kentucky portal, one of the features that it will offer, as we noted on slide 14, are released items. The released items tab does just what it says. It houses released items, and in accordance with KRS 158.6453, the Kentucky Department of Education is releasing a subset of science test items for grades 4, 7, and 11. These test item sets are being provided to school districts that include an electronic copy of an operational subset of test items that are administered. This release is designed to help students as well as parents and educators and policymakers become familiar with the test presentation and the content. The science released items are representative of the K-Prep assessments. And so these items will assist in basically just understanding the format of the test, the questions, and their makeup. Information and data on the science item sets will be released in 2 phases. Phase 1 reports currently available in the Kentucky portal. Those will include the released items, item statistics. There you can see anchor sets, as well as annotation forms, qualification sets, and practice sets. Now, phase 2 reports, it's going to include a little more specific detailed information. You're going to receive released item numbers, as well as standards, overall performance by student groups, and the number of students, and the percent that was correct. And you'll also see item breakout stats, as well as the answer choice key, which will share details on the percent correct. So the phase 2 reports, as you'll see there, phase 2 reports will be released to districts through the secure web application soon. Additional items will be released for other content areas after the first operational assessment has been completed representing the new standards. So right now, the only released items that we have posted are those for the science. So for any questions about phase 1 and the science items content, you may email standards@education.ky.gov. The Program Standards Division, led by Mickey Ray and Thomas Klaus, along with their amazing team, do a wonderful job addressing content and questions specific to those areas. If you got questions about accessing the Kentucky portal, please contact dacinfo@education.ky.gov. And again, the phase 2 release will be coming soon, so stay tuned for details when those are made available. All right. So now, thanks, Helen. Now let's talk about the last area we're going to talk about today. Happens to be another amazing feature of the Kentucky portal, and this is the accommodated practice test. So Helen, if you don't care to jump to slide 17, thank you. So the non-accommodated practice test links, those are the ones that were released in late October, the early November timeframe, I believe. along with their answer keys and rubrics. Those were made available and shared out back in the earlier part of winter, late part of fall. We're very excited that we can also add the accommodated practice test and share all the practice tests in one location on the Kentucky portal under that test preparation tab. Students will have access to use the TestNav platform with the text-to-speech function, as well as many other wonderful features. Also, the opportunity to receive instant feedback on practice items that's just an added bonus. The items for short answer and extended response, those will allow the teacher to print those responses and utilize those rubrics found in that exact same location. Now, I do want to make it clear, as you can see here on the slide, currently reading, writing, science, and social studies are the only accommodated practice tests that we have available. We hope to have math up and running and released in the next couple of weeks, if not before that. So if you haven't already bookmarked the Kentucky Portal link, I would definitely encourage it. There are many amazing resources available as we get ready for that spring administration. And so I think that's all the information I have for today. I'll now look to Pam to see if she has any questions around the information we were just able to share.
We have had a question come in, Kevin. Can they go ahead and share these releases with the teachers?
Absolutely. That information is public information. Once we put that out there today, you most definitely can share that information out with your teachers. If you want to utilize those released items or go to that test preparation tab and share those practice tests out with the students, we definitely encourage that. So.
And we have no further questions at this time for you.
All right. Well, at this point then, we will go ahead and turn things over to Jenny Larkins, and I think she's got some information to share with you about the Quality of School Climate and Safety Survey. So Jeannie, we'll take it over or turn it over to you. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Yes, I do have some information to share. So along with the other state assessments that we've been talking about, and in concert with the K-Prep and the alternate K-Prep, we're also planning to administer the Quality of School Climate and Safety Survey this year. Now, it was administered for the first time last spring, actually late February, early March, but the pandemic was declared before those that alternate assessment window. So for those students, this is going to be their first go at on that survey. Helen, if you'll advance, please, we'll see that the survey continues to have two forms. One form for students in grades 3 through 5, and then another that is appropriate for students in grades 6 through high school. Each one of these forms will have 27 statements for which students will have to respond either that they strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree. Now, students taking the alternate assessment will continue to have 10 items. Last year, there were 30 items on each form, but for 2021, a few items have been removed, specifically items that could only apply to an in-person setting. For example, one of the questions we had on last year's survey was, "My school is clean." Well, knowing that some of our students have not even entered into a school building yet so far this year, we knew that was a question that maybe some of them couldn't answer, so that question was removed. And then a few others like that would only be able to be answered by in-person students. So when you review these items, you probably also are going to notice that we had to do some minor editing of some of the survey items. And that was mostly to kind of expand the application they could be used in. So as an example, one of the questions or the statements from last year was, "I feel safe at my school." Well, that became, "I feel safe in my classes." Another was, "If I have a problem, there's an adult at my school that I can talk to." Well, we reworded that question so that it is, if I have a problem, there is an adult from my school that I can talk to. So no change in the meaning of the statement or the constructs that they're intended to measure, but just broadening their application to kind of include those instructional settings where students weren't necessarily full-time in the physical school buildings. All right, now let's move on to the next slide and talk about a new addition for this year, what we're calling the Opportunity to Learn survey. Now, we know that some of our students have attended at least some classes in person, but some in hybrid situations, and I think most or maybe all students at one point or another have participated in some virtual learning. And we know that things were done differently all across the state. So the department is trying to get a greater understanding of what these different experiences have been like for students. You know, have they had the kind of experience where they were able to be in contact with a teacher if they needed help, or those kinds of things. So really, in addition to the school climate and safety survey for 2021, we're also going to collect some of this supplemental information. It'll use 7 survey items that focus on 3 areas. Access to tools that support instruction, access to instruction, and instructional experience. So again, we're asking things like, did the students have access to a teacher if they needed help? Did they have devices that were easy for them to use? Did they have live classes, or were they able to watch recordings, and those kinds of things? And collecting that information from students this year statewide is going to help us get a better understanding of the context and just perspective to help us kind of interpret the data if we do have to publicly report. So let's now then move on to some administration details. Thank you, Helen. So as it was last year, the survey is going to be taken by all students in the tested grades of 3 through 8, 10, and 11. And also as it was last year, it's only available in an online format for K-Prep. Accommodated materials, paper materials are not available for that. Now, for students taking the alternate assessment survey, it will be in the front of that assessment binder and categorized in the areas of climate, safety, and then opportunity to learn, but combined into one document for that spring administration between March 22nd, March 28th. But in both cases, there isn't going to be a paper answer document available where students will respond on that. So students taking the survey online, as always, would just answer right in TestNav. If a student receives a scribe accommodation, the typist will type those responses or click those responses right directly in TestNav. And you know, if you are taking an alternate assessment, those will have to be entered in the SRD. All right, now, Helen, would you advance the slide, please? All right, so thank you. So now, because this is an online assessment, there is going to be some involvement with Pearson Access Next for K-Prep. So even though we're saying that to give the survey prior to the content area test, you will have to create a separate test session in PA Next just for the survey. And that's not something new. It was the way that we handled it last year, where you had to put them in one test session for the survey, another for their content area test. Now, the survey will look a little different from the student perspective than the other content area assessments in the way that you won't need a seal code to open that. And that's information that you might want to share with your teachers so that they aren't looking for that seal code for the survey. Then also to help you plan for testing, we've shown here that we're asking you to allow a 20-minute administration time for the regular K-Prep survey. Now, for alternate assessment survey, there isn't a specified time limit, but just like the K-Prep, the alternate survey should also be administered prior to the content area test. And then finally, we'd like to show you what accommodations are going to be available for the survey, and that's just most of the accommodations that are typical for all of our assessments are going to be available for the survey. Again, that survey is not going to be included in an accommodated paper test booklet this year, but students can still use a reader that is reading from the computer screen. They can still have a scribe, which would be a typist in this case, extended time. They can have stop the clock breaks and so on. And then also this year, the students who are eligible will have the option to use a text-to-speech feature within TestNav. Now, Jennifer mentioned to you a moment ago that the February DAC trainings are going to be released soon. And I believe it's going to be in the accommodations presentation that Jason Howard will give you a lot more information on this new text-to-speech feature and how to request it for students within Pearson Access Next. So that pretty much wraps up the survey there. So I'll stop and see, Pam, if we have any questions about the survey.
We've had a couple of questions come in.
Sure.
Will the survey questions be available before the test, and will they be available on the website?
I'm so glad you asked that, Pam. I think I skipped right over that. On one of our slides, maybe it was the one before this, Helen, there it is. You'll see that the survey items are available on the Quality of School Climate and Safety website. I believe Ms. Pam posted those yesterday in advance so that they'd be ready for us today. You'll notice when you get on there that there are 8 different forms. And so we have separated those into the Quality of School Climate and Safety Survey, the form for 3 through 6, for 6 through high school, alternate 3 through 5, and alternate 6 through high school. And then 4 opportunity to learn surveys in those 4 separate forms that coincide with those. So yes, and they are on the website now if you click that link on slide 22. Any other questions, Pam?
Could you repeat the grades that are participating in the survey?
Yes, the survey is administered to all students who are tested with K-Prep, so grades 3 through 8, and then 10 and 11.
Okay, and the opportunity to learn survey, is it separate?
Thank you. It is separate on the website. We have put that into 2 different forms so that you can see what it looks like. But within the test itself, when the students get onto TestNav to take the survey, those items will be combined into one event, one survey event, or one sitting, I guess I should say.
Okay. That's all the questions so far.
All right, Pam. Well, then I will turn it over to Jennifer to finish us up. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny, and thanks to Shara, Chris, and Kevin for all the good information. Just want to update everyone on where we are as far as assessment and accountability for both Spring 21 as well as the future. So, Helen, if you'll move to the next slide. At the Kentucky Board of Education's regular meeting on February 3rd of this year, the Office of Assessment and Accountability had 2 discussions, specific topics with the Kentucky Board of Education. The first one was on the accountability regulation. As you know, the accountability regulation needed to be amended because of the Senate Bill 158 passage in the 2020 General Assembly. Based on those changes, we've gone through a process with the board that we've talked with them multiple times in August, in October, and November, and then this is the first read in December, and then the second read in February. We've been very transparent about the recommendations that were brought forward and the discussion at all of our advisory councils. We had a lot of good feedback from our advisory councils that included parents, teachers, principals, the local superintendent advisory council, as well as our SCAC, which is the School Curriculum Assessment Accountability Advisory Council. They had good input. We had input from the CAKE board, which is the Kentucky Association of Assessment Administrators. And we also talked with Title I practitioners. We've had a lot of good discussions about the accountability regulation. And at the February 3rd meeting, the board did move the regulation on and with the approval. Now, with that approval, there were some recommendations from LSAC to investigate one particular area, which is the minimum N. So we've got some investigation to do on a recommendation that they presented on the minimum N. Particularly, we have to go to the U.S. Department of Education and get guidance on what they had input on. So with that, we've got work to do on that piece of the regulation, but the regulation will move on into public comment period. The regulation itself has been filed with the LRC, which is the Legislative Review Committee, and they will then move it into public comment. There'll be a 60-day public comment period where people can email specific responses and input on the proposed regulation and amendments. There will also be a time frame where there will be some live events to be able to have input. So it moves into the public comment period for 60 days, and then we'll have a statement of consideration that will go back in front of the board in June. So with that, we'll have some statements of consideration on any of the proposed amendments. Then hopefully it'll pass through in June, go into the legislative committees over the summer, and hopefully have a revised regulation in place by the fall of this year. So that is moving along. The second conversation that we had with the Board of Education included the future of assessment discussion. The board is quite interested in working in updating and changing the current assessment. There's a lot of work over the next few months. The Commissioner of Education has announced his listening tour, and those dates are from April through May, the 1st of May. And in his listening tour, he's going to be talking about the future of education, and the information that he gathers there will have input on the assessment in the future assessment system. So he's going to be talking about the future of learning, and assessment and accountability is one strand of that larger conversation on Kentucky's education system. So that movement is also happening around the future of assessment. There are partners in the work. Jean Wilhoit from the Center for Innovation that's located at the University of Kentucky is a strong partner of ours in this work. Also, the Districts of Innovation over in the Office of Continuous Improvement and Support is also highly involved with the future of assessment. So that's exciting work that we're looking forward to having everyone's input. And I would encourage our district assessment coordinators and building assessment coordinators to attend the commissioner's listening tours. There are virtual events that are happening all around the state. So we encourage you because you have good insight and perspective on assessment and accountability, and would value your input at those. So please look for that information. Beyond that, I wanted to share that our February DAC trainings are being recorded right now. They're in the final stages of editing, and just want to to praise our staff here in the Division of Assessment and Accountability Support for the hard work that is going into presenting and creating all of these resources, because there are PowerPoint presentations for each of the topics you see here on the slide, as well as handout and other resources that will go along with these trainings. So look for those. Those will be in Monday's DAC email, those those taped recordings. And we encourage you to watch those. It's going to answer a lot of the questions that we've had this morning. And we'll have a follow-up question and answer time in February, specifically Wednesday, February 24th and Wednesday, March 3rd. So we'll have a question and answer session for each of those particular topics, with possibly the exception of high school, because the ACT office hours have been so successful that we don't see that there's really a need to have a question and answer session on the 24th and 3rd for that particular topic. But these question and answer sessions will be live. They will be structured that we will ask questions about specific topics at a scheduled time. So more information about those specific times will be shared in a email that will be forthcoming. Now, we do encourage you to watch the videos prior to coming to the question and answer sessions. We're planning to start from the beginning with your questions. So there'll be little to no presentation other than just some brief introductory comments, and then jumping right into your conversations and questions. So please watch those videos prior to attending those question and answer sessions. Not on the slide, but I did want to provide some updates on where we are as far as Spring 21 assessment and accountability. Let's start first with accountability. As you know, we have submitted the waiver from the U.S. Department of Education to identify both CSI and ATSI. So CSI is the Comprehensive Support and Improvement Schools, and then the ATSI is the Additional Targeted Support and Improvement Schools. So that waiver has been filed. I think back in January, the last time that we met as on a DAC Webcast, we said that it was coming, and what it was presented publicly, we gathered feedback, and that waiver has been submitted to the U.S. Department of Education. So again, that waiver is with the U.S. Department of Education to waive Kentucky's identification of schools for CSI and ATSI. Now, for TSI, the Targeted Support and Improvement Identification, we were awaiting information from the U.S. Department of Education on how to apply for a waiver from TSI identification. And recently, we have received that guidance. So the department is currently working toward developing that waiver and then eventually submitting that for waiver from TSI. So more to come on that waiver. So if we get approved for those waivers, that removes accountability from Spring 21. So again, we've got to have those waivers from the U.S. Department of Education from accountability. So in those waivers, again, the CSI and ATSI waiver has been submitted, and we're working on the development of the TSI. So I know a lot of people ask about accountability, but accountability is being requested to be waived from the U.S. Department of Education. So Kentucky is working toward that end. We don't have those approvals yet, obviously, but we will share with you as soon as we get information on those waivers. As far as Spring 21 assessments, a lot of conversation and a lot of questions about are we really going to assess during a pandemic. And at this point, we don't have information from the U.S. Department of Education that would tell us otherwise to stop. As you know, we've taken the approach to be prepared for assessment in spring 21, if that is indeed the direction that we're given from the U.S. Department of Education. We think that it's more likely to have relief from accountability than we will to have relief from assessments. So we are, again, preparing for spring 21 assessments. And as you've heard this morning across all of our presentations, that we are preparing for that, indeed, to administer those assessments. If we get something from the U.S. Department of Education that says otherwise, then we'll share that as well. As a note from the federal level, the Biden administration had chosen a individual. His name is Michael Cardona. He was the state commissioner from Connecticut to be the new Secretary of Education. His confirmation hearing was held last Wednesday, and his name was moved forward. So we are awaiting information from the new secretary, and him more guidance from his office. So I know that it's going to take a bit for him to get his feet underneath of him, but at this point, we have not heard any other guidance or direction from the U.S. Department of Education on testing. So again, we are preparing and for spring 21 assessments. As noted, we'll have those guidance. I just do want to say two more points. We're going to have specific COVID-19 guidance documents. They are specific to participating in spring assessments. So look for on Monday, again, they'll be released. This will be through a press release, 2 documents. The first one is participating in spring 21 assessments, and the second is administrative guidelines. And I shared a little bit from the question someone had this morning on whether we should test or not, or prepare to test those virtual students. So look for that guidance, because again, I think that's going to provide a lot of answers to a lot of questions for you. The second thing, also the last thing I'll note, is that the department is interested in what assessments you are doing formatively in your school and district. So we are in the current development of a survey. It'll be through a Google form or Google document. Ben Riley and Helen Jones are developing that survey, and it's going to be about your formative assessment, and if you've been able to administer that, what content areas, what grade levels, whether or not you can do it virtually. So please look for that survey as well. So it'll be coming out very soon to our district assessment coordinators. So we'll hopefully get a good response on those formative assessments and whether you've been able to administer those this year. So Pam, let me turn to you now. I know we're over a good bit, but I think that we've had a lot of good information. We've had a lot of good questions, and I want to take all the time that we need to support our district assessment coordinators and our building assessment coordinators. So if people need to go, I totally understand, but we'll stay here as long as we have questions that are being asked.
Okay, I think some of them you've already answered, Jennifer, okay, about the federal guidance, and that we're definitely marching ahead for testing this year for K-Prep this spring. But some of the things that we haven't answered yet are, do we know the approximate length of the February 15th recordings? they want to do a PLC with their backs. So do we have a time frame to give them?
Pam, I would ask you that. Have you seen the time frames of those recordings?
No, I know SDRR runs about a little over 30 minutes.
Okay.
So I don't know. I have not seen the other recordings at this point.
So the other recordings, I would say that they're from anywhere from 15, 20 minutes to 30 minutes. The K-Prep is probably the longest. I think that maybe the alternate assessment is also around 30 minutes. So you can imagine that each of them are somewhere around 30 minutes. Again, the K-Prep one may be a little bit longer because it has a lot of information in it.
And it looks like that we've got some people chiming in. Looks like alternates around 30 minutes. So is high school and test security. They're both around 30 minutes. Accommodations is about 30 minutes. So about 30 minutes or so, give or take, 10 minutes probably either side for each one of them. But K-Prep will be the longest. Now, when it comes to the Q&A sessions, can they attend more than one Q&A session?
Absolutely. It's going to be a live event. It's going to be like this. You will be able to submit your questions in some type of portal that will be coordinated and ask over the air. So yes, you can attend all of them. What we're going to do is we're really going to try to ask questions that are pertinent to that specific area during that time frame, and we're really going to be intentional about not answering questions about another topic during that time frame, so that there's not confusion and there's not that crossing of information, and that could lead to confusion. So we're really going to try to stick to those time frames, and so that if you're a high school person and you want to come to the test security one, then you know that time is when you're going to be needed to be there, and we're going to try to stay right on time with each of those. And I'll make an additional note that our partners at Pearson will be there during the time frames, so we will have their support as well.
And what about ELA credit? Will we be able to get that for our backs?
We are working toward ELA credit. Yes, we're working toward ELA credit. We're trying to determine how to make that happen, but that is very much our intention, is to provide ELA credit.
Okay. CSI waiver. If the waiver is approved, does this mean that schools that are presently labeled as CSI will not be CSI for the upcoming year, or will they remain in CSI as they did for this year?
So it's my understanding that those schools that are labeled CSI would continue to get the support that is needed for school improvement.
Okay. And we also have a question on where are we with the social studies field test?
That is a good question. We are prepared to give the social studies field test. It's there. It is prepared. We've got the items. We've got the forms. We've got the field test ready to turn on. We're, again, in this kind of situation that's evolving, and we're really trying to see if there will be students back in person. As you know, we need good representation across all student groups as well as performance levels. So we're really trying to watch the decisions the districts are making as to bringing students back in person and making a determination on whether or not we can hold the field test. So again, as Kevin O'Hare said, more to come on that.
Okay, here's an interesting one. Will students take the safety and learning surveys if we learn later that we are not required to do content testing?
So I will go out on a limb and say if testing is canceled, then we would cancel the safety and survey questions as well. Yes.
Okay, and could you explain our non-participation options again, now that extraordinary circumstances is no longer an option?
Your non-participation is a medical non-participation, and medical non-participations would involve both physical, social, and emotional. So there's going to be some flexibility there with the interpretation of our medical non-participation. And we've had Pam Powers and Joy Barr have updated the medical non-participation form, and it is going to be edited where that a medical doctor does not necessarily have to sign it. So there will be a area for the superintendent or their designee to sign that the student would have one of these type of medical situations that would exempt the student from testing.
Okay.
But again, as Pam's looking at that specific information will be included in the SDRR section of the trainings, and Pam and Chris will present those. So there will be, again, more information on that.
And we've had a couple more ACT questions come in. Do we have time for those?
Yes, I think Cher is here.
Okay, great. Shara, where can they find a guide and instruction for students to learn how to use the testing system for the online ACT and possibly practice tests for the online ACT for students?
Okay, so on for the practice test, the MyACT, when they create an account, they can create an account, and there is practice materials in there. The portion about this entering the student code is not online as of yet, but they can create, from what I'm understanding, they can go ahead and create an account and use the prep material.
And we have another question for you. This one's a little complicated. Does a district have to choose the same windows for the ACT for each high school in their district, or can each high school choose differently? For example, School A wants to test using window 1, only using paper and pencil, an online session. This would be a small school. School B, which is a large school, wants to use windows 1 and 2 using both paper and pencil and online sessions.
Okay, so yes, ACT is allowing that flexibility within a district. So your school A, the smaller school, could choose a totally different example using Windows 1 and 2, and your school B, your larger school, could use 1, 2, and 3. So yes, that flexibility is there from ACT.
Okay. And can they test in the gym if all students are 6 feet apart and wearing masks?
Well, I have been emailing her, and I believe I have that question answered. But again, there's a lot of different, this year there's a lot of different factors that go into that. Yes, you can test in a gym, but there was some more information that I needed on that one. So if anyone has any questions like hers, feel free to email me and we'll get your specifics and we'll work through that.
Thank you. And we have one last question for Kevin.
All right. Go ahead,
Okay, Kevin. We've had a couple people asking, how do they access the Kentucky portal?
Okay.
That was discussed.
Absolutely. No. So you should have got an invite this morning to this, or actually you should have received a special DAC email this morning that provided details around the meeting. But if you would scroll down that page, there is some information that was released about the Kentucky portal, as well as the accommodated practice test and those science released items. That was all included within that special DAC email that went out this morning. So just scroll down the page, and I'm almost certain that the portal is mentioned with a specific link about 3 times. And then also in this training today, if you look at it through slideshow, when you make it an active slideshow, you could link from this in the screen as well, or from the link in the presentation as well. So lots of access points, and I do encourage you to get out there. There's a lot of good information.
And if you still can't get in, go ahead and email DAC info, and I'll send you a link.
Yep. We've got that coming.
Thanks, Kevin. We have one last question so far for Jennifer. See, she knew it was going to be her. Will districts still be required to complete testing within 5 days? Social distancing will be a challenge during this testing year.
No, that we have removed that requirement of 5 days. We have held to the 14 days in the last part of your school calendar. But with that 14 days, if you need more time frames, that we would ask you to contact us, and we through DAC info, and we'll be able to provide that flexibility. So the word of the spring testing window for 2021 is flexibility. So if you need it and you are making a reasonable, dedicated attempt to test your students following those safety guidelines for healthy at school, then the flexibility will be there. And if you need to talk with us, as we've mentioned several times, we will be here to support you through this, because testing during this time frame will be challenging, and we understand that, but we're here to help you through that. We're here to provide guidance and direction and the most up-to-date information. So again, at this point, all the information that we have heard from the U.S. Department of Education is to prepare for testing, and until we hear otherwise, then we are taking those steps to prepare for testing. So, but what we can do is be flexible and make sure that you have the flexibility that you need to test all of our students.
And that is all the questions we have at this point.
Well, thank you, Pam. And I want to thank each of you for hanging in there with us. It's been a good hour, over an hour and a half now. We said at the beginning that we had a full agenda, and we did, but we had also a lot of really good questions, because we have a lot of really good DACs and BACs, and we appreciate your time and attention today. We wish you the best. We want you to keep healthy, keep safe, keep warm, and we miss you all from our in-person February DAC trainings, but we're glad that we can continue to provide support in this virtual manner. Our next broadcast is scheduled for March 11th, so we will see you back here in March. Until then, happy Valentine's Day. Thanks, everyone.